The different parts of analyzing behavior and how to tweak these conditions are a large part of determining motivation and increasing a desired behavior. The principles of behavior management assume that every life experience adds to a person's knowledge base. Every experience influences a person's subsequent actions, both consciously and unconsciously. For example, in school, a poor performance on a test may heighten anxiety on future work. And in life, touching a hot burner will hopefully cause a person to rethink this choice in the future. These are a few simple examples. Behaviors that are rewarded over time are maintained, while those that are not rewarded over time may disappear. The three variables affecting behavior are conditions, the behavior itself, and consequences, or what occurs after the behavior. There are two fundamental principles of behavior management in the classroom to keep in mind. The first is that effective teachers spend more time promoting responsible behavior than responding to irresponsible behavior. The second is that effective teachers recognize that misbehavior occurs for a reason, and they take that reason into account when determining a response to the misbehavior. Let's take the example of a student who is consistently requiring correction for talking out of turn. The teacher begins to recognize specific times of the school day when the student is most likely to display the problem behavior. Instead of constantly correcting the student's misbehavior by asking him or her to be quiet, the teacher may seek to meet that student's need to socialize by replacing the learned problem behavior of talking out of turn with a more pro-social behavior. In this instance, the teacher may plan for the student to run an errand and speak with a preferred staff member, or assist a friend with a conversational task. This intervention allows for the social student to engage in conversation while still meeting expectations. The intervention is planned and may require a few minutes of time during the school day, but it is sure to limit time lost to correction and lack of focus in the long run. This may be a more effective response to this type of behavior as compared to constant correction. When considering what influences a behavior, antecedents and consequences come into play. Initially, use effective instruction and set up conditions for students to be successful by promoting responsible behavior and discouraging irresponsible behavior. After a student action, ensure that the student experiences appropriate positive feedback when they engage in responsible behavior. For example, this could be verbal praise, a positive note, or simply encouraging the student to praise themselves. Also, you want to make sure to eliminate unpleasant consequences. Ensure that students do not experience negative results from exhibiting responsible behavior. If we look at behavior in isolation, once you have a reasonable idea why a misbehavior is occurring, you can take actions to reduce and eventually eliminate it. The slide lists several examples of reasons why misbehavior may be occurring. Function explains why behavior occurs. We can now teach a replacement behavior that meets the same or similar function. The child's needs are still being met, but with a more effective behavior or one that works better in school, also known as a pro-social behavior. For example, if a student misbehaves to avoid writing because it is overwhelming, we can teach that same student to ask for a break. Simply put, a behavior occurs in order to get or to avoid something. If you reorder the parts linked to the behavior analysis and start with the behavior itself, think about conditions leading to the behavior and what happens afterward. Several examples of preventing negative behavior and teaching desired behavior are providing lessons to teach the student how to behave responsibly, modifying work that is too difficult for the student who is not completing assignments, These are some things to keep in mind in the modify conditions area under the antecedents column in the table. Consequences are simply what happens after a behavior. If a teacher gets angry when a student misbehaves, this may be a pleasant outcome for a student if there is a poor student-to-teacher relationship. Responding calmly to a student who likes to make adults angry is a way to keep this pleasant outcome from happening. Thus, it will not reinforce the problem behavior in hope of eventually extinguishing the behavior. On the flip side, a teacher may implement an unpleasant or corrective action after the behavior. For example, restitution may ask that a student's parent pays for a broken property after aggressive behavior by a student in a classroom. This unpleasant action for the parent or guardian, and in turn for their child, may keep the behavior from occurring again. As teachers, we must realize that the student who repeatedly misbehaves is, at the moment, more motivated to misbehave than to behave. Take a moment to focus in on the second phrase here, and that motivation is influenced by internal and external factors. The expectancy times value theory of motivation states that a learner's motivation is determined by how much they value a goal and whether they expect to succeed. The conditions educators create or the way they respond to a behavior can affect a student's feelings on how they should value something, or if they can expect to succeed to a certain degree. This heavily impacts if students are motivated to show a desired behavior. You can use the behavior problem-solving sheet linked under this voiceover presentation to examine the conditions around a negative behavior you see from any student in your classroom. Please use this as a resource if it is ever helpful. The next section of this module will serve as an activity that you should complete. Start by watching a video on the Quick Consult protocol in the separate module below. Please be sure to read handout 1.2 in the next module for instructions on how to complete the activity.